So yeah, I founded FRUKT with a friend of mine in 2001. We were just a couple of chancers with MacBooks trying to do something different within the music industry. We evolved the sort of post-rationalized journey explanation. What we do is we're a marketing communications agency that sits in between consumer brands and the world of entertainment. So in 2012, we'd beaten a company called Octagon in a couple of pitches, and the last one was for the torch relay, to basically host the Olympic torch relay in the UK, and they were really annoyed by that. So given that we'd beaten them a couple of times in other pitches, they decided that they wanted to come and buy us because the marketing space is quite acquisitive. A few people will grow and evolve themselves. Mostly it's just quite acquisitive. So they knocked on the door, and about the same time, two other people came and knocked on the door as well. And then we went and spoke to a couple of other people. We sold eventually to Octagon, just finished in May, so quite fresh out of it. So the post-exit thing, I won't really talk too much about that because I'm still in the middle of it, but I can certainly tell you about the process and what we go through. There's kind of 5 things that I've found quite useful to sort of focus the discussion around. The first is the actual sale process itself. So for us in our industry, you can't really decide when you're going to sell. So it's kind of planets need to align. People need to be ready to buy. They need to have a strategic need to buy. And then you need to be at the right point in your trajectory to basically piss them off enough for them to come and want to buy you. There's been some touching on it already, but in my experience, a company's ready to be bought if it's basically ready to remain independent. It needs to be structured in such a way that all the finance is in the right place, all the reporting's in the right place. You know where the revenue is going to come from for the future. You know where the profit growth is going to come from. If you've got all of those things, you're going to work in an earn-out, but you're also going to work independently. So it's more important, and we sat down and spent a lot of time with this. We worked with a corporate finance company for about 3 years before we were sold to help us work out how should we do all the reporting and also why should we ever want to sell. And for us, it was driving revenue growth is one reason. We felt that we could achieve that somewhat ourselves, but by being acquired, it would be useful. Profit growth, we could do that ourselves. International expansion was something that we knew that we needed help with because we tried to do something in the States and it was just proving to be expensive. We didn't have the connections. We wanted to put a Brit over there for culturally it's about the same kind of business, but it wasn't quite working. And the other one is if you just want to exit the business. We didn't particularly want to. We liked doing what we're doing, but it'd be nice to take some cash off the table after about 12 years of doing it. So we worked out what our motivations were, and that's kind of the first thing. So the process, what we did then is, touched on it before, work with an advisor. Absolutely work with an advisor. I'm a kind of monkey see, monkey do kind of person. So if I see somebody doing things, I think I can learn from it and do it myself. So I'd always said, we'll work with an advisor the first time I sell the business, and then I'll just do it myself. Having gone through the process, there's no way on earth I'm ever going to do a sale without an advisor sitting next to us. And so we met lots of advisors that specialize in our space, and we picked the person that we basically, most of them have got similar skills, they've all sold businesses, most of them have done okay. So we picked the people that we just got on with because they become a shoulder to cry on, counsel, they just help you, they're that buffer for the difficult conversations. So we just found something that we really got on well with. And then on the legal side of things, we actually invested, we basically find the best lawyers in town. So we found one particular person. When that person walked in the room, we could feel the intake of breath from the other side, and they just went, oh shit, these people are serious. And they put in clauses in the contract that meant nothing to us beforehand, and throughout that 4-year period, they were invaluable. They added sort of structure and protection for us, but also that we just made more money from these clauses being in there. And whilst it's the single biggest expense I've ever spent any money on, apart from buying a house. So it was painful at the time. It paid back, several times over. So that was the other thing. So work with great people. I suppose the key thing for us, we had quite a difficult transition into being owned. And this notion of ownership, I've spent quite a bit of time thinking about it. So I mean, there's a lot of things that happen. Firstly, you get loads of decisions that need to be made that you weren't having before. People asking you lots of questions, you know, the cost of apples suddenly becomes an issue, but you have loads of decisions, more than you had before. So you reach a point, I reached a point after about 6 months, where I just had decision fatigue, but there were still loads of decisions to be made. There's lots of people asking questions, both internally, you know, are you going to leave? What's going to happen? How are things changed? People complaining about certain things, people praising certain things, mostly complaining. And also from above, so you've got a boss, which is odd. The key thing about this ownership thing, though, is beforehand, we were courted by these different companies. So we were the best thing since sliced bread. We were doing something they couldn't, but they really wanted to do. And so this process happened where it's like going on a date. You put your best suit on, you behave, you're really nice, you try and get the other person basically into bed with you. Then you get the deal done. You go to bed with them. And then suddenly they expect you to start doing the dishes. And they tell you what to do, and they don't give you quite as much, you know, housekeeping money as before. And you're going, oh, I don't need housekeeping money. I'm not your wife. And they're like, no, you're more subservient to that. So there was this notion of ownership that they went from this point where we thought that we were coming in and adding something to them. But we went to a point where suddenly they went, oh no, we do what you do because we own you. You're part of our fiscal setup, so therefore we can do all the things that you do. And for us, maybe it was a sports marketing firm that bought us. So they're very used to celebrities and working in that space, but it was from the sort of sport jock perspective. And suddenly we were doing stuff in film and music and, you know, putting on gigs and things like that. And they were like, well, that's pretty cool. We want to do that. Yeah, we want to be with those kids over there. We found that really difficult. And the one thing that would have helped, something that Chris touched on before, is a proper list of things that might go wrong. And beforehand, you just talk about all the things that could go right. We can help you internationalize. That'd be great. No problem. We can help you introduce to clients, all that sort of stuff. But not the things like, you know, they didn't know that we had a company ski trip that we paid for, you know, we subsidized the trip for 50% of the cost and we gave people extra time off. And they were like, well, yeah, that's got to stop. We're like, no way is that stopping. That's part of us. And they went, yeah, but what about all our other stuff? We've got 600 other staff that are going to want to go on a ski trip. I was like, well, I don't give a crap. Take them on a ski trip. It seems to work for us. And they were like, don't tell us what to do. I'm like, but you're telling us what to do. So it was a real sort of Venus and Mars type thing that happened. But it's setting those things up, thinking about all the stuff that could go wrong, and talking about the behavioral aspects, like really what do you want us to be within your organization, and getting to know the people personally. We didn't go out and get drunk with them enough. You know, maybe that was one of the things, or maybe that was the reason the deal got done. Establishing goals through earnout was really important. So it sounds kind of obvious, but just as an example, I set several goals. My background is statistics, which is really boring, but it meant that I drove down into the earnout model as much as I could. I worked out that if we could drive revenue for about 2.5 years, it was 27 months of the 4-year earnout. If we drove revenue, then we could drive the actual multiple, which is based on profits, from a higher base. So we got loads of pressure from a publicly listed company that was saying, your profits aren't high enough this year. And we went, we know, because this is what we're doing. So don't have a conversation with me now. Have a conversation with me in 28 months' time. And then you'll see that there's a flip in the way in which we're doing things. And we just made sure that that was absolutely, from the financial perspective, what we were going to drive. The other thing, we networked like crazy. We were suddenly part of this big group, 45,000 people, a lot of smart people, a lot of different marketing disciplines. We spent a year to a year and a half just meeting as many people as we could and just learning. We ended up setting up a joint venture in Italy with a PR agency. We set up we licensed our brand to somebody in Dubai. We opened and closed an office in Brazil. We opened offices in LA, New York, Australia, and we also rolled in a couple of companies as well. So throughout this 4-year period, we went from 30 people to 110, and I just got loads of experience throughout the whole thing. I learned so much stuff which also helped drive the business as well. So literally making those, what are you going to do? Not get distracted. Of course there's distractions and sometimes it's fun and you go and do those things, but make sure that you deliver on those key things. And then the fifth thing is the sort of post-earnout bit. I mean, it's a bit weird, to be honest, post-earnout. I set FRUKT up to be kind of the right place for me to exist culturally and professionally between the hours of 9 and 5. It was never 9 to 5, but that was how I was going to express myself through my working life. And so I came out the other end, and for me, I could have stayed, but I didn't want to carry on doing the same thing, and there wasn't anything quite the right thing for me to do. Really, if you want to stay, but you don't really need to make that decision on day one, or leave. You don't have to make that decision on day one. But it's strange leaving because you just need to find the next thing. But there's no rush to do it, so you just take your time, which is what I'm doing at the moment, which my golf handicap's improving. I've got a tan. But mainly it's just, if you hit the numbers, you're a rock star internally and you're a rock star through the earnout. So just keep your staff happy, hit the numbers, and just try not to piss anyone off along the way who might be the ones that give you a job in the future. And that's the 5 points.